You are listening to the Drew and Jay podcast, brought to you by 21 Media Productions. He is Drew Lasker. I am Jay Marriott. This is episode 8, where we break down the trophy finals. But what better way to kick off the show than catching up with Tia Adams, part of the 2025 trophy champions, the Caledonia Gladiators. Welcome to the show, Tia.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Hey, we appreciate your time. And just before we get off into the meat and potatoes and all the juiciness of the finals, let's just catch us up on a little bit about yourself. Just give us a quick synopsis about, your background.
Okay, yeah. So this is actually my third year playing professionally overseas. I'm from Seattle, Washington. So back in the States, I live on the West Coast, and I went to college at Oregon State. I also went to college at San Diego State. So I transferred into Oregon State in my senior year. But yeah, so yeah, third year playing professionally. I played with the Gladiators my first year overseas. So it's great to be back and be in this position right now, and it's great to be talking to you guys, so I really appreciate it.
Well, some interesting facts that you left out there is that your dad used to play in the NFL, and interesting enough that we are from the same part of town. He went to high school at Cypress. I'm from Katy. Have you ever gotten a chance to visit back there?
I actually have. How cool is that? It's such a small world.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But this is about you. So go ahead, Jay.
Yes.
No, so obviously, returning to the Gladiators this year, like just give us, give us your reasons why return up north.
Yeah, so originally our first year, I got the privilege to play under Miguel, and that was fantastic. And I loved my teammates, and we had a pretty successful year. I just wanted to explore other options and maybe touch base in other parts of Europe, and that was really good for me. And once I found out that Shan was going to be the coach, I really wanted to jump at the opportunity to be coached by her because she was a great leader as a teammate, and she's, we have a great relationship, and it was really exciting too, being able to play in the Euro Cup. So that was a great experience. And, I was all in and excited to be a part of this team this year. So it was good. It was a great decision for me.
And Shan is, I've never heard of call Shan before. So she's actually from this area here in Newcastle. And just what is it about her that that makes a good coach?
She's just a natural leader. Like I said, when we were teammates too, she was just always, in that position to be looked towards in challenging times. And she was always just like taking the reins when it came to, leading us. And it's just been, she honestly, like it's been a very smooth transition into her being a coach, like I said, because she does have that natural leader tendency.
Well, let me ask you this question. So obviously, like leading up to the finals, and I always thought this was going to be a really exciting final. This is one of the best women's finals I think we've seen in a long time. Came right down to the wire, and it wasn't just only the fact that it was exciting, like from a perspective of coaching as well. It was really interesting, especially the end of the game, the chess pieces, and how it was all moving. But before this final, the lead up to the final, obviously a lot of negativity around, the men's team and everything was going on. How much of that actually affected you guys as a team, or were you able to tune that out and kind of be like, that's not our journey. We're getting ready for a final.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, like obviously there's been a lot of adversity with the club, and on the women's side we've just stayed the course and never turned away from each other. And there was a lot of outside influences, and we just made sure to keep our heads down and keep working through whatever distractions were going on. And it didn't affect us. Like I said, we do have a great leader as a coach, and we just, like I said, we stayed together and through everything just put our heads down, kept working. And it's honestly been it's been challenging, obviously, but it's been good on the women's side. So
Was there ever a time that you personally or maybe the team felt that during the turbulence that it was not enough focus on the positive side of things with you guys going into the finals? Because there was a time where it kind of got lost, and because of everything was so focused on the men. Did you feel that you guys kind of got marginalized a little bit?
I would say that there was a lot of focus on what was going on the men's side, but I would say like we really just kept our heads down and we got what we deserved, and that's realistically like it just shows our resilience through everything, I think. And I will say there was a lot of noise from that side, and there's been like a lot of turnaround, and but we've been consistent, and like I said, like I think that we're very deserving of this, and so it's just a true show of how resilient we've been as a team.
So, leading up to this final, and it's no secret. He always talks about it. It's Steve Timoney this is where he started. He started in the women's game. That was what his passion was, and the rest of things kind of fell into place. And I know you had the pleasure, like myself and Drew have had over the years, to get the conversation from Steve about the sword. Give us a little bit of context around. What that means to you guys, because that's what I love about the Caledonia Gladiators is the culture and the history and the responsibility. Just give us a little bit of a synopsis of that talk that he gave you guys going into the final.
Yeah, his pregame talks are always fantastic. I got to experience some of them my first year too, but he is so proud to be Scottish, and he is so welcoming to everybody that visits this country, and he calls us the daughters of Scotland if we're not from here. And like I said, he's so proud of us. And going into that final, he was like, I genuinely, if you guys leave it all on the court, I am happy regardless of the outcome. And it's really nice to have his support through anything realistically. And just to know that like he trusts us to get it done. It's really inspiring, and it's comforting too. And so knowing that we could go out there without any pressure and just to perform and do what they know that we can do it's really comforting. So that honestly, his pregame talks are pretty phenomenal.
Well, let's transition things on to the game and to the X's and O's specifically. Coming into this matchup, I felt like it was a coin toss. Obviously, Oakland's are slightly favored just because they're undefeated. They defeated you guys, a couple of months ago. Although a lot of that work was done in the second half. You guys were tied at halftime. But what, from a strategic point of view, gave you guys the confidence that you could be the first to take them down on this big stage?
Right. I think just it's all in the preparation and then the work that we put in. Honestly, the beginning of season we had a pretty rough schedule when it came to our domestic and our Euro Cup schedule. And I don't think that the first time that we played them was a true representation of how we can match up against them. So I'm really glad that we got another chance to, and what a great stage to have it at the trophy final. And we were just confident. We were confident in the preparation that we did and each other, and we have each other's backs through anything, and that we can really lean on that. So when we are up by 6 and they go on a run, we just start trying to stay level headed and just trust our preparation and know that we definitely are able to take this team down. I know that they're undefeated in the regular season, so or even overall. So it's a very good test, and I think that it just instills more confidence in us that we have what it takes to be great in this league.
Yeah, I mean, what I really loved about this final was obviously that chess match at the end. Just how many, and I feel like both coaches deserve credit. I think that they both executed the plan absolutely perfectly. You couldn't have asked for any more. But one of the great things that I saw, like just listening to the comms as well, is just how much faith coach has in you. In terms of the fact that going down late, I know that there was a lot of talk on the comms that they were like, hey, let's try and get Hannah Robb in this situation. Let's try and get this person in this situation. And when it really mattered, coach kind of kept you in that situation, make sure that you went to the line to knock those free throws down. Like, how much confidence does that give you? Because the percentages might say that it goes to somebody else, but I always feel like when it comes to a final, it's about the leaders stepping up and being counted. And, she was looking to you to go down and knock those last 2 free throws down. Was that a great feeling?
It is, and I will say it does instill confidence in me, and I know that we have a great relationship. But yeah, coming down to it, I think that they definitely were like, that's the person that we want to foul, we want her at the line, and I mean, at the end of the day, like when it comes down to it too, especially I was like 1 for 2. I want to say every time I went to the line leading up to that anyway. So, but when it matters, I guess is when it matters. So I'm proud that we were able to get it done. And yeah, I was very nervous at the line. I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous. But it's exciting. And I'm really happy that it came down to the wire too, because it's exciting for fans, and it just proves that we can keep our head leveled and be victorious in situations like that.
Yeah, let's stay there because I think this is very important for our listeners who, a lot of them have not been in your position, our position, or played the game. And sometimes they look at athletes and think that we're robots, but we do feel nerves, we do feel pressure. Just really describe the feeling that you felt. You were targeted to go to the line, and so you get there, you're down, you're up one or whatever. Describe what you were feeling so they kind of understand the nerves, and then maybe talk us through what you were telling yourself to kind of limit the nerves and allow you to get through that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was very nervous, and it was a long walk from the opposite end of the court to the free throw
It
line.
was fun.
It was a long walk.
So much time to think about it.
It was so much time, but my teammates came up to me. They tried to calm my nerves as much as possible, and I was just trying to give myself some positive self-talk and say, it comes down to this. You're prepared. Think about all the free throws that you practice, and just stay steady. And it's gonna be okay. And I was just trying to calm my nerves, because realistically, how many free throws have I practiced in my entire life? Probably millions.
Yes.
So I was like, you got this. Let's just settle down. Let's get this done. Let's just extend this lead as much as we can, because realistically, I mean, they went back on the other end. They got fouled. Shanice made a free throw, tried to miss a second one so they could tie the game. I mean, it almost went in their favor that last second. It almost went in their favor, but I mean, realistically, it was exciting. So, and I'm happy that we pulled out the win. So,
well, let's just so we talk about that last play, and Coach Handy was delighted with how you dealt with that. Obviously, just trying to keep them off the 3-point line, trying to force them to get downhill. Seems like job's done. Coach Lee goes to two bigs in that lineup on the free throw, and arguably I think De Silva is going to work that one back in her head for a long period of time. But the buzzer sounds, you guys are champions. Just give us that kind of feeling that you were able to, not only for yourself, but what you were able to share with your teammates.
It was a feeling of relief. It kind of felt like we've prepared for this, and we've worked so hard in the preseason and the regular season for this, and it kind of is like, oh, we're finally getting what we deserve. Like, this is just a little taste of it, and this is the first step, I think, into just touching base on what we can even do throughout the rest of the season. But I will say it was a sense of relief, because it feels so good to finally taste success where we have prepped for the entire season, leading up to this.
Yeah, no, that's important. And, seeing the smile on you guys' faces behind me, and, seeing the raw emotion of, everyone on the bench running on the floor. And when you win a championship, a cup, or whatever, it's not just about that particular game. It's what you alluded to. You spend so much time together in the gym, in the weight room, traveling together. And it's not, there's not always a prize at the end of it. Of course, there's winning games, but like, that's what it's about, right? It's about everything, right?
For sure. For sure. And leading up to it, like I said, like our preseason was rough, and Euro Cup, our schedule with Euro Cup and the first few games of the domestic league were very challenging for us too, schedule wise. And like I said, like we've put in so much work and dedication just to get to this place that we are in right now. And so like I said, it's just like a sense of relief, like we deserve this. And honestly, like we were so happy, and that emotion, that feeling is so unmatched. So I'm very, very, very happy and excited to see where we're going from here.
I
Well,
was
let me
disappointed not to see any champagne bottles of alcohol in the locker room. What's up with that? Like, who's the planner? What was the
we
alcohol?
we were saving that for a later time.
love that. Hey, that maybe speaks to
We
the
got 2 days
mentality,
off,
Drew.
so we had plenty of time to celebrate.
Love it.
Okay,
Love it.
okay.
Well, let me just finish with this question. Like, it's amazing to get to the top of the mountain, but it's only one of several. So there's still a long time in the season to go. Like, what can we expect from this Caledonia Gladiators? Is this final really energized you guys to go again? Or do you feel a little bit depleted and just need a little bit of time before you can kind of focus on the next thing?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think that this just instills confidence in us, and we've always known that we can do great things in this league, but feeling it, tasting it, and experiencing it are a completely different type of confidence of what we can do and what we will do. So that's honestly, I mean, it's great to feel. It's a great feeling, and I think that it's going up from here. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, we're excited to follow you guys for the rest of the season and see how it transpires. Obviously, last season we got an opportunity to see what it did for the Cheshire Phoenix on the men's side of, really propelling their season, and they went undefeated in January and February, and so, no pressure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to catch up with us, Tia, and
No doubt.
fully enjoy that. And a word of note: if you're listening as the Caledonia Gladiators, let's make sure the socials are much more focused on the women's game because there are big things happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'll tell them.
100%.
I'll make sure they know. I'll make sure they know. Thank you
Love that.
guys.
Well, thanks for
Well,
your time.
appreciate your time.
Thank you guys so much. It was nice chatting with you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Some raw reactions there from Tia Adams. And like she mentioned there before, 2 days of getting to celebrate and partying. And Jay, the toughest part about it all that I found in the past is that, especially for Americans, right? Because you're used to celebrating at the end of the season and you can spend the whole off season partying, but you got practice the next day. That is a really difficult thing to adjust to.
Well, I think as well, like you've got to take a look at Caledonia Gladiators as an organization. Like that was such a huge win for them on so many levels. That's going to
Yeah.
give Coach Handy so much confidence now in terms of a coach. It's given her a platform to go and move on. As Tia alluded to, like it wasn't the smoothest start at the start of the season. And to come into this particular final, perhaps not being the favorite, only slightly, but Oakland's overshadowing that, and how good Oakland's have been. It would have been a really difficult situation to come in, and then you couple that with a lot of bad press, albeit none of their doing. Like it was nothing to do with them. But hopefully the organization did enough to make them feel really, really settled going into that final. And what a game it was! You couldn't have asked for more, could you?
Yeah, and the biggest thing is that the competitive balance is back in the women's game, right? Like as much as we enjoyed the talent of London because it was
Mm.
enjoyable watching the women's game played at that level in this country. It is nice to know that, things are back up for grabs again. And for me, going into this game, I really uh, had a education in the women's game so far this season because I just follow Newcastle. I can't say that I follow the entire league thoroughly, but I watched a lot of tape on Caledonia, watched a lot of tape on Oakland's, and yeah, the one thing that gave me the confidence with Caledonia is that I knew that they could win ugly, right? Whereas Oakland's is more visual. They score a lot, but for Caledonia, they can get down and dirty. And we all know, like historically, in the finals, you're not going to shoot well. Offense is going to be ugly, and that's why I had confidence in Caledonia. But when we fast forward to the men, we weren't expecting Newcastle to shoot so well, but so that which gives us a perfect segue. Just from your perspective, obviously you watching all this stuff from television. How did it all come across?
Well, just very, very quickly, just before we go to the men's game, I just want to give a shout out for the Oakland Wolves because I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed what they've done this year in terms of like their new branding has been excellent.
Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, and I thought actually their game plan, the way the coach handled himself, everything was great for them, and like I said, I think De Silva might just want just an extra half a second of thought process there in the final, but that's what a final can do to you. Um, in terms of the men's game, obviously, I think from the casual fan, like it wasn't the final that everybody wanted, right? Newcastle were so good, especially early on. I think they swung that really big haymaker at Bristol Flyers and they just could not get back off the canvas. But that's just a credit to just how locked in and ruthless Newcastle were on that stage. You could feel it in the build-up, right? Coach Stuttel is great friends and a colleague with Coach Andreas, but he wanted none of those conversations. He made it really plain earlier in the week, that for this game only that there was going to be no friendship or anything else like that. It was a rivalry, and even in the finals build up, he didn't even want to speak his name. So that's how locked in Newcastle Eagles are, and I've told you before, I've experienced that in the worst way coming up against those Newcastle Eagles when they are locked in, ruthless. The uniforms are on point. They just look the part. There was just no recovery from there.
Yeah, they were some straight up dogs. That performance reminded me of a blast from the past of how, just getting down and dirty, everyone locked in. And it's interesting because when you look at last year's team, they had way more talent, but they just lacked that, right? That intangible. If they had that intangible, maybe that team goes on to have more success. But man, this team, 1 through 15, just all and you made a great point. Like when I watched all the VTs, all the interviews, to me, it just felt that Newcastle was just a little bit more locked in than Bristol. Not saying Bristol wasn't, but it was very clear that Newcastle was. And when you look at the performance, it looked like the everything kind of overwhelmed Bristol. They just weren't expecting that. And that's why I had mentioned, I think I even tweeted it when Newcastle lost the way that they lost against Cheshire. I think that played a huge role in that performance because when you lose on a buzzer beater like that, a game that you're supposed to win, like, and you've been a coach before, you have a little bit more attention of the players during the week, during practice. Whereas that week they beat London pretty good. That's a big win. They go off and beat Cheshire. Maybe they're not as locked in for practice in the run up for the game. But then also, 2 weeks ago, they lost to Bristol as well, which Dan Routledge brought up a great stat that, 8 out of the last 10 teams that lost to the team within the same calendar month went on to win the final. And there's no coincidence. Like, you just more locked in.
Yeah, and I mean, don't forget as well, like Coach Andreas had a huge head-to-head on Coach Stuttel as well in terms of SBO play and stuff like that. So, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me, like I always had Newcastle as slight favourites, just because I felt like that I didn't feel like Money Mike had to do everything to go and win a final, whereas I really felt like Keedy Johnson had to come to the forefront. And at the end of the day, people might feel like Keedy Johnson didn't play his best game. He wasn't able to play his best game. At the end of the day, like sometimes your best defense is your offense. And Newcastle just kept putting them in situations where their half-court offense had to be tested. And I just felt like they were never able to run their own race. They just weren't able to get in. Sherfield just never came to the party, and we saw that towards the end of the game when he came in fussing around with his jersey, and that was a really good example of dogs, right? Seneca Knight just went up there and said yes please, and he was still kind of tucking his jersey in, and I feel for Coach Andreas as a coach, because he was moving pieces and he was just trying to find something that could stick. And actually, the only thing that really did stick, that gave him any kind of small, slight hope, was going to the energy of players like Corey Samuels and stuff like that. Who were able to hit a couple of threes, and he really was the only one, I think, that showed like, this is my team. Like, I'm not letting this happen. And he kept fighting and, got himself into some trouble. And he was just everywhere, everything that you needed Corey Samuels to do on the day, he did. But just nothing really worked for them. And just offensively, the better it got for Newcastle, the more free they felt, the more confident they felt. And as you said, like a great shooting performance, when we usually say we don't see that.
Yeah, and that's why I picked Newcastle as the favorites. I went on the Flyers podcast beforehand and just talked about everything you just alluded to. We even talked about it here when Keedy Johnson was on the show, and I said that it's a lot of pressure on him. Like, he had to have a Money Mike type of performance in order for Bristol to even have a chance. Just because I think they were really exposed, right? They don't have a lot of weapons. They don't have a lot of guys that can create their own shots. And when Keedy scores the same amount of points as Corey Samuels, you're never going to win that game. And that's no disrespect to Corey Samuels. It just goes to show that, like, 9 points was not going to get it to you to the promised land. But, the silver lining for the Flyers is that, teams have bad finals, players have bad finals, and trust me, you come out better. I remember, my first cup there at Birmingham, we lost by 50. And then I went on to win 3 in a row. I lost when we lost to Leicester in 14, and I had 2 points and just was a shell of myself. From then on, like every final, I had close to double doubles of great performances. So someone as talented as Keedy Johnson, he'll be able to bounce back. And the key is that you can't sit around and wait for something to happen. You have to go and make it happen, and you have to be aggressive. You have to leave that game with no bullets left in that pistol, and you have to live and die with your talent. You know what I mean? If you're trying to wait, by the time the game comes to you, it's over. If you think about Sherfield, a guy that's been up and down all season, and then, he hits shots late and putting his hands up to the gods. And it's like, no, you're waiting around for this thing. You got to go early.
I think that's the only thing that I found unusual about Bristol is I've seen a lot of fight in them, the games that I've gone to and the EMBL and stuff like that. And usually all starts with Robinson as well. Robinson is usually, very, very aggressive at the forefront of everything. And really, I think the only player that I saw try to take the mantle was Lewis. He was the only one that I really genuinely felt was trying to be aggressive. I felt like they went onto the back foot, and then I just think they stayed there.
Yeah, no, you're right. And then also, they were unable to they just didn't have an identity. Like, I wasn't sure what they were trying to accomplish, because if it's not, aggressively Keedy Johnson getting downhill, then you would think option 2 would be to get your big fella established down low, and they never really did that. And so, but again, a lot of credit has to go to Newcastle. Like, the scout was on point, their mindset was on point, and it was very clear that the hunger was there as well. And then, how about my guy coming and photobombing a live interview, Mr. 28?
Well, what I loved about that is for a second, he forgot that the cameras were there. He still thought you were his teammate, and he thought that you were on the bus, where instead you were on the biggest stage of your career, or sorry, your reporting career, your comms career. And there he was bombing in there. But I just love the fact that he's just still got so much energy for winning. He's a serial winner. What more plaudits would you give Newcastle? Did they get the MVP correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, let's make sure we give Seneca Knight a shout, because he was amazing as well. And that's playing through foul trouble. He picked up 2 early fouls, but you have to give it to Mike, because he set the tone. He
Exactly.
got the
Yeah.
party started. He was the separator when there was jeopardy. It's which is a lot more difficult to do when you got a lead and being able to score. And that's not taking anything from Seneca. I'm just saying in general when we're trying to pick who the MVP was, like he made it happen. And even though he went quiet for the rest of the evening, at one point we thought he was going to put up a Charles Smith performance, but at the end of the day, he set the tone, which in those finals, we talked about it, is so difficult to shoot. It's so difficult to score. However, if somebody is able to get it going, it's infectious through the entire team. And you saw how Newcastle's been one of the most poor three-point shooting teams in the league this year. But Mike got that party started, which opened the floodgates for everybody else, which gave them confidence. And ultimately, Seneca Knight was able to do his thing as well.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the deciding factor was, Seneca got fouled out, so there wasn't really much more that he could have done to give himself that MVP case. But like you said, I just love the way he set the tone, and I honestly believe because of the way that he set the tone, that enabled Newcastle to be as ruthless as they were.
100.
He looked absolutely fearless in that first quarter, where he was just enjoying the moment, and I think it allowed everybody to relax. Let me ask you this one question: what does this win do for Coach Mark Stuttle? It hasn't been, it hasn't been an easy move into the Newcastle Eagles, and the longer it gets a little bit difficult. So, like I said, last year was a better season. This season is his guys. Like his guys. He's talked about that very, very clearly. What does a win do like this for you? Not only as a coach, but a coach of the Newcastle Eagles.
Well, it solidifies you that I'm here. This is my team. So all the other players, the teams that's put together moving forward, they know it starts with him. When you're a new coach, you're coming into a situation, you're trying to find yourself, you're not really sure. You're kind of bowing down to the players, as we saw last year. That was more player led than coach led. But moving forward now, you have the confidence. You got the resume to say, hey, I've been there before. I've won. So this buck stops at me. So if you're unhappy with anything, you're more the word I'm thinking of, you're more likely to let go talent that people would be like, what are you doing? Because you're trying to take risks because you're trying to win. But now, it's him now. However, I would say it's not the end all be all, right? You got to stay hungry because, Coach Ian McLeod was in the same position, won 3 trophies really, really soon, but we saw how quickly things fell apart. And so I wouldn't say for the people out there saying, ink him a 20-year deal, this is it, and coaching is what have you done for me lately? Because, 2 terrible years in the future, people will quickly forget about this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately I've seen Coach Stewart. He looks so much more comfortable this year. I talked about that. I don't think like he's ever had problems being confident, but I think that definitely he's felt more like this is what he was building. And I think like the reaction afterwards as well, like he was very classy, but also as well, you could see those moments where he was just having a release, and I would imagine that was a release of real genuine pressure. But as you said, at the Eagles, like, is one trophy enough? Like you guys are a trophy hungry club. There's an expectation to perform. And there's still a lot of the season to go. But I think that is really going to help solidify him, and then obviously the trust of the group. I feel like when I look at those Newcastle Eagles, remember, they've still got to add their point guard who was ineligible because he came in too late. They're still adding a piece to this team, but I very much start to feel like the pieces are starting to fall into place and the roles are starting to be established, and everybody, when that happens, yourself, Drew, you've been a part of those teams, things then just start to roll.
Yeah, so as we mentioned with Tia, is that we could see a similar situation with Newcastle. That this because when you win that first trophy cup, what it was called the cup when I was playing, the shackles is off, the pressure is off. Like you are playing free and loose, and that could be very dangerous for the opponents. And so I could see Newcastle going on a Cheshire Phoenix run out the gates, but then also mindset is very important. Fab was very good at we partying away and we come on practice on Tuesday and we're thinking he's going to walk in with a smile and we're going to be loosey goosey and pow. He puts down the hammer and we like, what the hell? We just won a cup. And he's like, you know what happened on Sunday? That's behind us. F that. It's time to move on. And it's like, okay. So, it'll be interesting to see the temperament, the mindset of the Newcastle Eagles players as soon as Friday. They got London Lions coming into the house.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, from my perspective, I'm interested to see what both teams do from here. As you said, Bristol Flyers can use this as a lesson and motivation, and they can get back, or this could create a little bit of a slide. So I'm really intrigued to see how it plays out. As I said, from the casual observer, maybe not the final everybody wanted, but it sure was good to look at how assertive those Newcastle Eagles were. And we're probably doing a disservice as well. We should speak about every single player because they all played their role in that. I think Dan Routledge joked about how good Josh Ward-Hibbert was for the amount of turnovers that he had in that game, but he's such a catalyst, in terms of the fact that he hounds the best player on every single team, and that is a thankless task at times. So it's important to recognize those other players. I think everybody stepped up and everybody can touch that trophy with pride.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. But let's wrap this thing up. Appreciate Taya Adams for coming on and giving us that raw emotion from the trophy final. We appreciate everyone out there tuning in to us, but come visit us back next week. We're coming back with another heavy hitter guest here on the Drew and Jay podcast. You guys have a great week. Peace.